Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's audio production town hall meeting. We're so glad you can join us here today. Each month, you'll find us here covering a variety of different topics spanning from making records to sound for games and films and beyond. If you should happen to miss one of these sessions, you can always find an archive recording with the same link, but we hope to see you here regularly. Today, we'll be discussing making records from the demo stage all the way throughout the mastering stage, both covering both creative and technical aspects of the project. My name is Derrick Harvin, and I am the course director for Project and Portfolio 7 here in the Audio Production Bachelor's degree. So I will see you at the very end of the program. Joining me today is Jamie Slobodnik, who goes under the moniker Jamie Williams. He is a composer, producer, and an accomplished saxophonist who has worked with Jennifer Hudson, Gloria, Estefan, and many others. He is also the associate course director here in our very own music production degree track. Today we'll be talking about the making of his new album, Tongue Tied. So with that being said, thanks for being here, Jamie.
What's going on, Derrick? It's great to be here.
Yes.
It's a pleasure.
Congratulations on a new album.
Appreciate it, man. It's been super exciting for sure.
Awesome. So tell us about when was the album released?
So the album was released in January of this year, on January the 11th. And it's been a long time coming. My first record was released back in 2007. So it's been many years. So the releasing of this record has been just a total joy, and being able to work with some amazing musicians and be able to work with yourself was super, super awesome.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm really excited about the project. And congratulations to you, because you did a fantastic job with the production.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the call having me in. And a great show the other night as well.
Yeah, we had our album release party on Saturday, and thank you for being a part of that. It was a fantastic show. Both shows were sold out.
Awesome.
Which is an amazing thing, but it was awesome being able to play several of the tunes from the record.
Great.
Yeah.
So as you were building this project, you shared with me, the background of the storyline of the project.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, the album's called Tongue Tied, and as far as the writing of the music, it really started probably 5 or 6 years ago with writing Tongue Tied. And, once COVID hit, that kind of was a little bit of a stoppage as far as, putting music out there, but kept writing. And as I started writing more songs since 2020, a storyline started to happen where it was, the record took on more of a date night kind of a feel, right? So the first track is called Let Loose. So it's a more upbeat, fun, type of track, danceable type of track, and then Fireside, which gets a little bit more romantic, and then Tongue Tied, which is, just kind of takes us on a journey throughout the whole record. And, I think we were able to accomplish a pretty cool storyline where it's smooth jazz, has an edge to it, but it's an exciting record for
Awesome.
sure. A lot of energy.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, man.
I know as a producer, when I'm working on projects, choosing the musicians, the personnel, that's a very important part of the process.
Yeah.
Because it's, as you mentioned, those people that you work with and have relationships with. Do you mind sharing some of those individuals?
For sure, man. So, I was very fortunate to work with some fantastic people, and like I've told my students, it's you want to build relationships. Are so important. It's a relationship business. And so the people that I wanted to work with were people that I've worked with before and that I actually like working with. And so I have musicians. One of the drummers is from Toronto, Canada. We'll talk about that, but just coordinating with him out of his home studio, as well as the percussionist was also from Canada. I've worked with a guitar player from Jacksonville, Florida, and so coordinating that, and then several musicians here in Orlando, being able to work with you, laying down different keyboard tracks and helping with production and ultimately the mixing of the record. The relationship that you and I had to have, we had some fantastic moments. We had some disagreements on things, but that's the beauty of collaboration.
Yes, yes.
And I think because we had those sometimes tough conversations, I think the product that we were able to put out, you can hear that. You can hear it in the music.
I agree. You had mentioned working with various musicians in their home studios. Was most of this recorded, the project, in a home studio or a commercial facility?
Yeah. I would say as far as like what I came to the table with, I had programmed everything in. I pretty much record everything in Logic.
Okay.
And so I programmed all the drums, I programmed the bass, I programmed all the keyboard layers, I recorded all the saxophones in Logic, and then from there, in talking with the different musicians, so I wanted to have live bass. So I called my friend of almost 20 years now, Jamal Andrews, who was an employee here at Full Sail, fantastic bass player. So called him, and he was, more than willing to be a part of it. So I would send him the track that I recorded bass on, and say, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Obviously, Jamal, you're the pro, so I want you to record what you're hearing as well. And so in doing that, he did his thing, and came up with just a fantastic bass tracks.
That's awesome. So I'm a home studio enthusiast. I've been recording at home for so many years on major label projects and independent projects. So I love that process to be able to go through and be able to refine those skill sets in your home studio, whether it may be with acoustic treatment or equipment that needs to for our students to augment their lunchbox after graduation. Things of that matter. But there's quite a lot of Full Sail represented on this project.
Yeah, man, that was one of the coolest things. Being able to just really open the back door and say, hey, we got people here at Full Sail that are just fantastic, top of the line musicians that I could call on to be a part of it. So just to name some of them, Scott Dickinson, who is a program chair in the music production department. He's a doctor of music. He's a trumpet player. And just did a fantastic job playing trumpet on several of the tracks, so very thankful that he was a part of it. And he actually recorded in my home studio, which we'll show some pictures of that here in a little bit. But that was a cool process, just being able to coat, he's a doctor of music, right? So he knows what he's doing. But being able to be in the process of recording, there were some things that I wanted to hear differently than the way he was interpreting it. So just being able to have that open communication, say, no, play it like this. And him being a professional, be like, okay, cool. And so he played it, and we were able to get what we were looking for. So Scott did an amazing job. Also on upright bass was Marco Borquez, who's also in the music production department. And he played on the one vocal tune, To Make You Feel My Love. And just did a fantastic job. And then, of course, Jamal Andrews, who I mentioned, played electric bass on most of the record. So then I know there was some audio production grads.
Yes, absolutely. So, first starting with my long-time collaborator, David D1 Grant, which is also a graduate of Full Sail from the Recording Arts program, I believe, back in 2003. So we just kind of been rolling together for many years. So he laid down a lot of organ. He would come to my studio and lay down original Fender Rhodes tracks, and so that was a great joy. But yes, my one of our graduates, Mr. Franklin Shaw Robertson, he was responsible for mixing the album with me. So he mixed several of the cuts. So very proud of those efforts and being able to mentor and guide him through that process, considering this was probably the first time him mixing a full instrumental album, with the exception of the vocal song. So he did a fantastic job there. So.
He did. He did a fantastic job, and you did a fantastic job. I can tell you. So it's been a pleasure, going through the whole process with you, and I love being able to collaborate with like-minded people, and you were just so much fun. Everybody was so much fun. But to lend your talents playing keyboards, and because I'm not really a keyboard player. I mean, I can play keyboards. I'm more of an auxiliary guy, but working with you, you're able to play the piano, play the keyboard the way it should. So I was super grateful for your ears and your technical expertise, because I learned so much. And I'll say this, as being here at Full Sail, I'm going on 8 years here at Full Sail. The majority, and I've been a performer all of my life. And since coming here to Full Sail, I feel like this is where I've learned how to produce.
Wow.
You know, so which has been outstanding. It's really helped me in the way that I create music, because I've played on many people's records, but as far as producing my own record, I could credit Full Sail to really teaching me how to get to where I want to be, and this record is a product of that.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm super proud of it.
That's awesome.
So thank you to Full Sail.
Oh yeah, it sounds great. Great community we have here, and a lot of resources to do so. So the bulk of this album, if not all of it, was recorded in various places, various signal chains, various environments, and a lot of deliverables. I like to think of when you said, when you mentioned like you're not a keyboard, you did a wonderful job at building the bed tracks. And for those who are live with us in the stream, the bed tracks are like those baseline tracks that we made decisions to, like, okay, we're gonna maybe MIDI up this track and then maybe use a hardware synthesizer or a hardware keyboard to get some better tones and things of that nature. But what I think is interesting as it relates to our program, it reminds me of like Portfolio 3 with Paul Holland, where the students are kind of developing like a demo grade work. By the time that they get to Portfolio 7 at the end of the program, they're at like kind of a master level, like ready for radio. So it's like we went through the whole gamut of this process, and super proud of you just kind of putting on your shoes to do the production role alongside with me, because that's not an easy feat to do. So, but we had several people involved in the process. As you mentioned those, we have some of that footage with us here live, and you talk about Ahmed, which is in Toronto. So I have a video here of him recording drums on
This is Tongue Tied.
Tongue Tied, the title track.
The title track, and so he's recording this in his home studio, and he is a major session musician up in Toronto. So his setup, you can kind of see it there. He's recording in Logic, and he has his mic set up there, and just gets a fantastic sound in the way he's treated his home studio there. So check it out.
Let's see what we have here. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, so when you listen to that, like when I'm listening to it, I'm hearing all the things that are not there.
Are not there, right?
Right? So when I sent this over to Ahmed, it was missing a lot of even the sax lead. There's no guitar in it, which is kind of that magic whenever you hear the final product.
Organ and
organ and extra keyboards. So Ahmed, whenever you're working with these recording musicians, it's so, in my opinion, it's so important to work with people that you can trust to hear it. And I gave Ahmed some direction, but when you're working with a professional, you let them do what they do, and when I hear it back, I'm like, oh yeah, man, that's right on key.
And for your students in music production, did you provide Ahmed with charts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So absolutely. So that's so important that they have a roadmap.
Okay.
And I actually sent like the form in Logic, with the markers up at the top saying, here's where this section is, here's the intro, here's the verse. so on and so forth, accompanied with an actual rhythm chart that he could read. Because, you know, I believe I want to make it as easy as possible for the musician to be able to know what to do and where to play.
Yes.
And so if I can provide them a chart that has the different rhythms already written out, if there's melody, like when we recorded the guitar, I wrote out the melody line for him. So he didn't have to try and figure it out by ear, which is what happens a lot.
Yes.
It's waste a lot of time. So if I can write it out for them, that's going to save time and they're going to appreciate it.
That's awesome. I would like to also show this other video here with Gerald Law, who is no stranger to the Full Sail community.
Yes.
But Gerald also played drums on the album. And this is an interesting photo for those who are looking at it. You wouldn't imagine where this is set up, but this is actually in a storage unit.
A storage unit. Hey, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes, right? When you listen to it, you wouldn't believe that the drums came out of this room.
Yes.
And I've recorded a lot of cuts with him from this very same room. We've gone over adjusted mics in proximity,
Yeah.
maybe switched out mics. If you look a little closer here, he has a couple of Focusrite audio interfaces here. I believe I have another image here that's a little closer with some drum mics, and we have 2 overheads here, but we generally would track with like a kick out mic, so the microphone is outside of the kick drum itself, and then one inside of the kick drum to give more of the attack from the beater. And then 2 mics on the snare, mics on the toms, and again, the overhead microphone. So I don't have a video for that, but I like to show that because it's such a contrast from a mix setup. So mixing down these various drums,
Yes.
you know, was sometimes a bit of a challenge. But you know, and when you're close to a project, when you're producing it or when you're writing it, you have in your head what you want it to sound like,
Exactly.
and you want to translate that via sonics. And
exactly, and trying to, like, if it's not sounding the way that you want, that's the battle that you have. But it's great being able to have more than just my ears listening to it and going, I'm not feeling it. Derrick, what do you think? And then, you know, collaborating on that to come up with what's going to sound the best.
Absolutely. And we have a few other images here and videos. I'm gonna, so this is the setup from Jamal Andrews, who works here at Full Sail, and this is kind of his signal path and his chain for recording bass, and our students are using a very similar audio interface by Focusrite. He usually goes through his Active DI by Rupert Neve, which is you know, and for our students, you know, when you're looking to augment your gear from the launch box, you know, after graduation, what can I add to enhance my sound? How can I get that big studio console sound?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, an Active DI box or an external preamp that you can maybe drive the input for additional saturation and harmonics.
Yeah.
A lot of that contributes to the sound. So a lot of the musicians that you chose to work with, although the spaces look very humble, they are very experienced with the selective gear that they have within their budgets to be able to produce the results. Here is another image here with 2 of the basses that he generally would play, like a Fender Jazz 5-string, and not sure, I believe this one is also a Fender. He had both of these the other night when we did the show. Yeah. But a nice little studio. This is from the bassist. I get into some videos I have from my home studio where we have D1 on keyboards, laying down some parts for, I believe this is Chillax With Me, or no.
Let's see. Let's listen.
Oh no, same song, Tongue Tied.
Tongue Tied. Yes.
So some organ recording.
Pro Tools session.
Yeah, so some nice flavor there. A few other videos here. Here's another one, I believe. Might be the same, but different angle. This is probably one of your favorites, Jamie, here, where we lay down some live Moog.
Yes.
Some live lead.
Yeah, this is from the final track on the record called Turn It Over. And I wanted the last song to be kind of, it's like the end of the date, right?
Yes.
date night, so I wanted it to be kind of funky, upbeat, and this part of the song is one of my favorite parts of the whole record. The line that you guys came up with here is just, it completes the whole vibe.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion. So check this out.
One of my favorites. And you can hear my enthusiasm in the, in the
that's
video.
the cool thing when we're working together, you're collaborating, you build on that energy, man. And so as he was playing that, I mean, you could just feel, it just feels so good, man. And
Yes.
The sound, the Moog sound is iconic.
I try to encourage we encourage our students to work with musicians because there's so much expression that you can get out of hardware instruments and the music.
Absolutely.
You know, the musicality you can pull from these musicians outside of the box, just exclusively working in Ableton Live or virtual instruments or Logic or Pro Tools. You know, it's just so much that you can just get that right flavor.
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, that's where the emotion comes from. And I think in so much of music today, in my opinion, is just kind of, you know, drag and drop vibe. And there hasn't been a lot of like live musicians, and it's starting, I feel, to come back. But when you add that live element, to me, it makes the track come to life. And you know, so the more I'm encouraging my students to, like, you know, work with musicians. Don't just, you know, think inside the box, inside of your plugins. You know, think of, you know, working with other musicians that can add ideas to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And don't think that you have to have all the coolest ideas. You know, that's one of the mistakes that I've made in my career, is like thinking I'm the be-all, end-all for all the creativeness, and that's just not true. I mean, I'm creative, but, you know, the more minds, the more talent you put in the room, the better the product's going to be.
Absolutely.
I think, so.
Yeah, great point. Great point. I skipped over this one when we mentioned Gerald's studio, but this is a closer image of his interfaces for the drum tracking. We'll just go through a few more of these. And here's a really cool one.
This is the percussionist, Jorge, who's also from Canada. And you can see his setup there. It's he's got 3 congas, he's got his timbales, and he's got some shakers. And he sent me this video of him tracking, so check this out. It's pretty cool. I've tongue-tied.
Let's refresh that.
Yeah.
There it is. I love live percussion.
It adds that live feel, man.
And a shaker up to the right video up there. Very nice.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so like when I was originally recording the MIDI of everything, so in my mind I knew I wanted to have percussion playing it. So like the main software that I use is Native Instruments stuff, and as well as Omnisphere and with Keyscape and all that. So in my Native Instruments they have the Cuban percussion, right?
Yeah,
so
it's good stuff.
So I did all the MIDI for that, and I put that in there, and I said, Jorge, do what you do. Here's what it's in my head. You make it come to life.
Yes.
And so that's the beauty about working with real people and live musicians, is it enhances it and makes it come to life.
It's so great when you get the tracks back.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally there were. I mean, it takes a lot to move me, you know, like emotionally. And there were times when I would get these tracks back from these guys, and I would listen to it, and my wife will tell you, I would be in my studio, and she'd come in, and I'd just be like, sobbing, because it was just like, I can't believe how amazing this sounds. And you know, it's true. If you can't be moved by your own stuff, then you know, keep writing.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, so that's kind of my goal. Like, I'm writing for me. This is music that moves me, and if it moves me, I think it'll move other people.
Well, hopefully you felt that way after my piano solo.
Oh, dude.
Oh, okay.
Heck yeah, man. Absolutely. Your Fireside. So Fireside, you know, is going to be the first single. The first single is going to be released in March.
Okay.
It's going to all of radio, smooth jazz radio. Yes, radio is still a thing. It's being pushed to all the different playlists as well on streaming. But you played a fantastic piano solo on Fireside. Check it out, everybody. Check out Fireside. But what did you use to play that?
Actually, the Omnisphere.
Omnisphere.
No, I'm sorry, Keyscape. Sorry, Spectrasonic.
Spectrasonic, yes.
Spectrasonic Keyscape, yes.
Nice.
There's a soft piano in there because
Yes.
I wanted it to be really delicate.
Yeah.
We was going to add the effects, you know, reverb throws and just
Exactly.
like little delays to just make it really emotional.
Yes.
So I didn't want it to have too much of a bite. You know, it's a very
Right.
smooth song, you know.
Yes.
So it was perfect. It didn't take long to just make some adjustments with the patch to maybe
Yeah, man.
take the reverb off of it because we'll process it in the mix.
Exactly.
But it was a lot of fun. In addition to that, I got a few other images from, really love doing live percussion as well in addition to, on Fireside, I actually use these items live, you know, triangle, claves, cabasa, shaker, tambourine, as well as a thunder effect, which is a tube where you shake it and it creates this nice little motion.
Yeah.
And also some live chimes, which is
Yes.
always good. I got tired of looking for the perfect chime sample.
Yes.
So I told my wife, I'm going to the Guitar Center and I'm going to buy me a nice set of
Yes.
chimes.
And it definitely adds so much color to it, you
It
know,
does.
especially when you pan it going across the spectrum there, going from left to right. It just
Yep.
adds such a cool ambiance.
Yep. So students, if you have stereo microphones and you have those on live instruments, you can have them set up in a configuration so you can play shakers that will create that natural panning sound and that effect. It's really, really cool and it's really beneficial. I want to get into some of the images from your studio
Yes.
and how you track Scott Dickerson and also your sax parts.
Yes.
So here's one here.
Yep, so that's a picture of my studio, and I'm using a Neumann TLM 103 microphone, and as far as on saxophone and trumpet, probably about, when I record, I'm about 8 to 12 inches away from the microphone, and you know, I love the high end of the Neumann there. It gets a very nice warm sound, but also has a little bite to it, which I love for the sax and the
Yes.
trumpet. I also use that microphone to record vocal. So there's one track on the record, To Make You Feel My Love, which there's a picture of that with the pop filter.
Yep.
That is my beautiful wife right there. She sings the lead on To Make You Feel My
She
Love.
did a fantastic job on that.
She does, yeah. And she's not a professional singer. She'll be the first to tell you. She is a businesswoman first. But, you know, she first sang that to me. She first sang that song, To Make You Feel My Love, on my birthday, like several years ago. And I was blown away. And I'm like, okay, one day we're going to need to record this and do this. And so this was the opportunity to do that.
That was a great call.
And I got to tell a funny story, okay? So when we first started getting set up to record this song and record her vocal, you know, she was getting all set up. First time ever recording for her. And she's like, I'm just going to sing and you figure out what to do with it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be the good husband here. I'm like, you know, so I'm like, okay, go ahead and sing. And so she sang and it was cool. But it was like in between keys. There was no backing track in her. She just sang it.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's not how it works, baby. You know, it's not how it works. And so it's a good lesson for us producers. So, you know, sometimes you got to let the artists, you know, kind of do what they want and then show them that's not how it really works. And so that's what I chose to do. And so,
Smart man.
Yeah, I'm smart.
You got to live there.
Happy wife, happy life,
Yes.
right? And so, so then we went back and I, you know, played her the track and she listened to it and then she nailed it. And but it was definitely a funny moment.
That's a great point because as a producer, and I learned from my mentors that kind of taught me the ropes, you always want to be encouraging. When
Yeah.
you know, you want to be critical,
You
but
don't want to kill the vibe.
You certainly don't want to kill the vibe, and you definitely want to lift them up. And because after you tear them down on that one pass, they could become timid.
Exactly.
May not want to sing out, and then it's just like you're not going to get what you know the results that you have.
Exactly.
So that's what Claire did a wonderful, fantastic job there.
Yeah.
You mentioned proximity with the microphones and recording.
Yes.
Both sax and also trumpet.
Correct.
And you mentioned about 12 inches away from
Yeah,
the
8 to
microphone.
12 inches away,
Okay.
depending on if it's a real, you know, if it's a real subdued kind of tune, I may lean in a little bit more. If it's where I'm like really digging in, I'll back off a little
Yes.
bit. On some of the tracks where I'm playing a background part, I'll step away maybe like 2 or 3 feet
Yes.
to just give a little bit more ambiance between the sax and the mic. So it adds more space.
Yes.
And I would record multiple layers. So like, you know, for a sax part, I would have like, you know, the left channel, right channel, center, and then I would double that just to give it more oomph.
Okay.
And I would just layer that over and over again to be able, probably like 2, at most 3 times I would layer.
Got it.
But that just makes it more prominent and you know, stronger.
Yes. And for those who are inexperienced with mic and live instruments like that, or working with a musician that's just leaning into the mic
Yeah.
throughout the entire performance, don't be afraid to, you know, coach them through it. That's a part of the process. Besides the technical aspects, you know, you want to definitely coach the creative aspect
Absolutely.
as well. And also concerning proximity with the mic, don't be afraid to listen with headphones and move the microphone around, whether you're recording live drums or percussion, to get the best tone, you know, rather
Exactly.
than fixing it in the mix, you know. Try to
Exactly.
get a good take and good pass and good signal going
Absolutely.
in. So good job with that, Jamie.
Yeah, man.
A really fantastic job with the recording of the sax. It's really interesting because the first cut on the album, Let Loose, is the only track that was recorded with a dynamic mic.
It was. And so this was very early on as I was just getting into producing and recording myself. So I had the only microphone that I had was a 58, a Shure SM58 microphone, which is a fantastic mic.
Absolutely.
It's a great mic. So I recorded my sax on the track Let Loose, and you know, the performance of my sax on that track was fantastic. I loved it. The energy of it was awesome. But when I went back and looked at it, I saw that I kind of overblew my parameters a little bit. It wasn't clipping, but it was above the normal.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, I recorded that in 2019, and then in 2020, I got new gear.
Got it.
And so I got my Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. I got my Neumann mic. And so then I started recording the new record. And so the quality of the sound changed, especially in the sax. And so once we started working together, I actually have a picture of the original sax
I believe this is.
wave. Yeah, so you can see down there at the bottom.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was definitely going outside the range. And there was one point in toward probably close to the end of recording this record where I was like, dude, Derrick, I think I need to just try and re-record the sax because it wasn't matching up tonality-wise with the new equipment.
Yes.
And I went back in the studio with my Neumann and all the new gear, and I tried to recreate what I had originally done in 2019. And it just was not happening. It was not, the vibe was not there. And so I was like, Derrick, we need to figure out how to make this original track work.
Yes.
And that's where your magic
Yes, I can't recall exactly what we did. I want to say I used BX Refinement, like from Brainworks, which is
Yeah.
a plugin from Plugin Alliance, just to take a little of the harshness off of
Yeah.
it. And fortunately, with and I'm not suggesting that anyone just overload the signal or clip,
Yeah.
but the great thing about when you record with a dynamic mic, it can handle sound pressure levels a lot better
Yes.
than, so if you were maybe recording too close or overdriving a condenser mic, you probably would have had some more noticeable distortion.
Absolutely.
Now, and fortunately, although that waveform looked like it was just completely peaking out, it didn't sound
Yeah.
as bad as it looked.
As it
And
looked,
with
no, it
some,
sounds
with
amazing.
some EQ treatment and just the
Yeah.
right, which is an interesting point, because once we get into this part of the discussion, when we talk about mixing, I had to rely on you quite a bit with dialing in a lot of the effects.
Exactly.
So let's talk about. Before that, let's talk about deliverables. You work with all of these musicians.
Yep.
I've worked. What was your primary storage or collaborative platform that you worked on?
I mean, basically, we would transfer everything through the website WeTransfer.
Okay.
And so they would send me back the files, and then I would just put it right back. I'd put all the files into Logic, and then I would do, whatever editing I needed to do. Like, if some of the timing was a little off, I would like tweak it a little bit here by, just by doing this a little bit of quantization. Yeah, then basically what I would do is I would, give my ear as far as processing of what I'm hearing, and then from that I would then, when I felt like it was ready, then I would just send it over to you via, WeTransfer.
Yes.
And then you would put my files that were in Logic into Pro Tools, and I would send you the unprocessed audio files.
Yes.
For everything, and then
So the
you could talk about
unprocessed
what you
being,
did.
for clarity, unprocessed without any of the effects, so
Correct.
completely dry.
Completely dry.
So no time-based effects and
Right.
no EQ,
No EQ.
no dynamic process, no compression.
Exactly.
Just completely
Exactly.
flat.
So
Okay.
so that was where it was a little bit challenging, I believe, especially as a saxophone player, because I know in my mind, I know how I want my saxophone to sound,
Yes.
right? And I'm not happy until I'm hearing exactly how I want to hear it. And so we had many of debates,
Yes, we
going
have,
back
yeah.
and forth, and that's the beautiful thing. It doesn't feel beautiful going through it because no one likes conflict,
Yeah.
But we were able to talk through it, and and you did a fantastic job of being able to replicate what I'm thinking hearing in my ear. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge.
And it got to the, towards the end, Franklin Shaw also mixing
Yes.
over half of the album alongside with me. It got to the point where we actually use a lot of your process
Yes.
effects.
Yes.
And I believe you was using Romverb
Correct.
from Native Instruments.
Right.
And I was dialing in maybe the Pro R reverb from
Yes.
Fab Filter and trying other, maybe Little Plate and different plugins, and I just couldn't get that sound.
Yeah.
So you
Yes.
have your unique sound that you was going for.
Exactly. So like on the track "Chillax with Me," we were going back and forth on the sax. I'm like, oh, it just doesn't sound right. And you were saying, I'm using your track. I'm using your processing. I'm like, doesn't sound like my processing. And so I went back and I looked, and there was something that was muted in my transfer whenever I bounced it. And so once I fixed that and then resent it, I was like, that's the sound. And then everything
Yeah.
worked. Sounded wonderful.
Yes, it was great. That was a great call, because I was trying my best. Franklin was trying his best
Yeah.
to get to get that sound. But and I worked with several sax players, whether it was Jeff Koshel or
Exactly.
Marcus Anderson. And everyone has Early Thornton has their unique sound, and that's to be respected.
Yeah.
Just a few other things. So we have a few screenshots here from actually some of the mix sessions. Here's the Fireside mix. I know it's quite small, so you see quite a lot of plugins on some tracks here. What's interesting about working in the mix room with our AP graduate Franklin Shaw is that a lot of times I'm able to translate to him how you are wanting things to sound as the co-producer on the project.
Yeah.
So many times I will bounce down stems, like maybe like mix the drums and bounce them down to like maybe a stem or the bass stems, or like commit my effects to the session and then send it over to him for refinement.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, we've done that quite a bit throughout the process, and it worked out really nicely. But we have about 4 to 5 years of doing that.
Wow.
You know.
Well, you could tell. You could tell you guys
so it's
know
a
how
great
each other
chemistry,
work.
yeah. So it's and the recall process, because sometimes that recall process, when you're trying to translate those ideas to somebody, could be really frustrating. Like,
yes,
turn it up a little bit, or let the vocals sit a little forward, or to bring the sax down.
Exactly.
So I think we may have a question in the chat.
Yes, we do. This is coming from Logan Bell.
Yes.
Logan.
What was the most difficult aspect of this project?
The most difficult aspect. I would say, and I think this is the curse of any producer, is being able to say it's done. You don't need to do anything else to it. For me, that's been the most challenging, because in my mind as a producer, I'm thinking, oh, it needs a little bit more tweaking. It needs a little bit more tweaking. It's not ready yet. Oh, it needs more. It needs this. And so, for me, that was the most challenging. As far as working with these other musicians and artists, that was like wonderful. That was easy. I mean, working with Derrick, it was amazing. Were there some challenging times? Absolutely, but that's expected. Whenever you're working together, you're going to have, there's going to be friction at points, and that's okay.
Yes.
And if there's no friction, then someone's not being honest.
That's right.
Am I right?
If
someone's
not,
right. If everything's just hunky dory,
mm-hmm.
then someone's not being real. So the key is being professional, and that's what I love about working with you, Derrick, is that you're professional. Nothing personal. It's hey, let's fix it and let's work on it and make it right. So to me, how about for you?
I think the same. And I remember having that conversation. I was on the way to a gig, and we were in the final hours of the mix down just to meet the deadline to get it to the mastering engineer.
Yes.
So we could meet your release date.
Yes.
And I had to tell you, said, Jamie, it sounds fantastic. Because when we're working as creators, I'm the same way with my own creative works.
Yeah.
We're too close to it.
Yeah.
We're so close to it that we can just keep picking it with it and nudging. But yes, now I listen, and we listen to the record, and we can just enjoy it.
Sit back and listen and
Exactly.
enjoy.
All right, do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have a follow-up question, again from Logan. How do you separate producer Jamie from artist Jamie?
Oh, boy. Well, that's a great question, man. I think producer Jamie is a lot more detail-oriented, whereas artist Jamie is more, go with the flow kind of a person. Like, when we're doing live shows, and I'm being the artist, I'm just like, we'll make whatever happen. But as a producer, I'm like, I got to be a lot more certain, a lot more like definitive on what I'm looking for. But as an artist, yes, I want it to be perfection, but I know we're doing things live, and so that's probably how I differentiate the two. It's a great question, though.
Great question.
How about for you, Derrick?
Oh, it's similar. It's the same thing. We, as a producer, you're just hearing all of these intricate parts, and as a keyboardist and, having tons of synthesizers and sounds, it's like, I want to add this, but less is more. So it's a discipline thing, and just, try not to be too hypercritical on yourself.
Yeah. And you're an artist in your own right.
Yes.
Yes. As a smooth jazz artist. So, you're trying to manage that.
I wanted to touch on this point because we said we were going to talk about from demo all the way to mastering.
Yes.
And we have one more question in the chat, which led us to Sienna Digital mastering
Yes.
with Reiner
Yes.
out in San Francisco.
Yes.
Because you and I were both at the point where we had remixed this, and we had a master or two from Charlie Webb back, and we just needed to try a different approach. And we had a good friend of ours that's out in California, that's a producer who
Yep.
sent over this contact, and it was just awesome. So yes, let's get to the following question.
Jonathan Clark is asking, how do you, do you ever do vocals as well, Jamie?
When you say, do I do vocals, like me sing? Because that's a hard no. I'm not really, I'll sing like background vocals, but as far as the lead vocal, as far as recording vocals, yeah, on this record, I recorded on the song To Make You Feel My Love as the lead vocal, which is my wife, Claire. Yeah, so to answer the question, yes, I definitely record vocals. As far as me being the artist as a singer, probably not. How about you, Derrick?
It just depends. I would do some background from time to
Yeah.
time, but I'm pretty much shy. in
Leave that to
thing.
the
Yeah,
pros.
leave it to the pros, yes.
Stay in my lane.
Or just keep a good dose of auto-tune or melodyne
Exactly.
on my track.
Come on,
I'm-
T-Pain.
Yes.
T. Jamie.
Yeah, there you
T.
go.
Derrick. TD. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Great questions. Awesome. This has been a great discussion. Back to mastering, that was a quick turnaround. You were able to, I showed the image earlier with your CD artwork, and
Yes.
this is a really cool, nifty
Yes. check
thing
this
you
out.
have here.
Yeah, so this is, in this day and age of audio streaming, being able to distribute something that's tangible, I believe, has been a big challenge in the industry. And you think about the most common ways of distribution, it's, as far as a physical product, it's been a CD for the last 25 years. And before that, it was cassette. And before that was 8-track.
Track?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're dating ourselves,
Yes.
brother. My wife, this past Christmas, she gave me this gift of these, the image there on top. It looks like a cassette right there. And I'll be honest with you, whenever I opened the gift, there was like 50 of them. And I'm like, what is this? And she's like, this is how you're gonna release your music now. And I'm like, what? And so it looks like a cassette, but you can open it up and you can see the USB drive there. And I was very skeptical at first because I'm like, no, I'm printing CDs. That's the way it's done. I'm going to give out, sell CDs at my shows. And she's like, no, just put a poll out there to social media. And so I went on Facebook and I put this out. I'm like, what do you guys think of this idea of distributing music this way for live shows? And I must have gotten 1,500, 2,000 likes.
Wow.
And about 700 comments. And they're like 99% of the comments were, I love it. That is so cool. That is amazing. And they're like, I don't even know what kind of music you do, Jamie, but I'd buy it. And I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
So that is how I'm choosing to do distribution as far as for live shows. And we had our first live show this past Friday. We sold tons of these.
Oh, wow.
Which is really, really cool.
And you actually have after hours on there too. I see you have both of your albums on there.
Exactly. So on the USB drive, I have both of my albums. The first one is After Hours, which is produced by Fight Ren, who was also here at Full Sail. He's in the music production department. And that record features Jennifer Hudson on vocal. And then my current album, Tongue Tied. So both of those albums, because I don't even own a CD player anymore. Like my vehicle doesn't even have a CD player in it. So I can literally plug in that USB to my truck and it'll play the files right out of the USB. So it's a great way that we've found to be able to distribute and be modern with it.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
And then if you do have a CD player,
You-
we have that product as well, CDs, and you can scope that out.
Well, I certainly have to get my CD, Jamie, because you did a fantastic
Brother, you got it,
job
brother.
on the project.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having me as a producer on the project.
Absolutely.
And thanks for doing this audio production.
Thanks for producing and
Town
mixing
Hall
with me.
today. Yes,
It's been an honor, man, and thanks for having me.
absolutely.
Cool.
So that's all the time that we have for now. Today, we hope that you enjoyed hearing this discussion just as much as we've enjoyed talking about it. Remember that the Audio Production Town Hall is a monthly event ordinarily happening on the last Monday of each class month. So keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for information on the upcoming Town Hall meetings. We would like to give a very, very special thanks. None of this would happen without our show production students in the room. And they're currently in an audiovisual technologies class under the direction of course director John Coss. So thank you all for handling the behind the scenes. Fantastic job, everyone. Thanks for attending. Take care, everyone, and we hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.